Perfect.
No.
Oh, sorry. I like walking your feet.
You're welcome, Jessica.
So why is it important for Christians to know what they believe and why? Why is it important?
Because it is.
Because it is. Why is it? Yes.
Because if someone were to ask you like why you believe in what you believe in, then you have like an answer to back them up with. You can tell them.
Right, there are too many Christians out there that are like, you need to believe in Jesus.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know, you just do. You know, they don't know what they believe and why. We're actually commanded in Scripture to know, to have an answer. Be ready to give an answer to those who want to know what hope lies within you. But do it with gentleness and respect. That's in either first or second. So we're actually commanded to know what we believe and why we believe it. And we're only able to communicate that with others if we know it. But here's the thing. If we're not going to live it out, we're not going to live it in front of somebody. That was me trying to talk to people about Jesus. I didn't know Jesus myself. I had Sunday school knowledge. It's ridiculous. So yeah, we need to be able to communicate that to others. How we have an impact on the world around us, right? When we know what we believe. So then, if you'll turn to the next page, there the questions 4 and 5. I'm just going to have you do on your own. 5 you don't have to do right now, but do answer number 4, and then we'll move on. Is there an extra one?
No.
No.
My headbands.
I have just one more.
Belfast. That is part of my password.
Let's tell everybody on YouTube.
No, that's just part of my password.
Not the whole thing.
You have a YouTube channel? Anna, what do you think we watched during quarantine?
Yeah, we have a YouTube. I don't have a YouTube channel. The school does. Okay, that should be good. Okay, so we're going to read 2 brief articles about 2 men. Both are no longer living. And what we're going to do is, after I read these aloud to you, follow along with me as I am reading. Highlight or underline or circle or however you want to do it. Any things about each man that you think are important, interesting, and things that you should remember about that person.
Why can't it be a woman?
And then, well, because these two articles are about men. So, and they're both dead, so, you know, they don't have a choice on that. I'm going to read this aloud to you, and then we're going to compare and contrast C.S. Lewis, who was a follower of Christ, an apologist. He was not always a follower of Christ, as you're about to find out, and Carl Sagan, who was an atheist agnostic. He called himself an agnostic. It played out more like an atheist. And then we're going to compare and contrast these two men. So follow along with me. I'm beginning with C.S. Lewis. Born in Belfast, Ireland in 1898, that's the same year my grandmother was born, Clive Staples Lewis, who as a boy insisted his family call him Jack, and that's what he was called for the rest of his life, grew up with a love of books. His family home was filled with books of all kinds, stacked wherever there was space. He read voraciously, that means a lot, and even tried his hand at writing poetry and fiction as a boy. But his idyllic childhood did not last, for Jack's mother died of cancer in 1908, and he was sent away to a series of boarding schools. At age 15, angry over the loss of his mother and influenced by secular teachers, Jack renounced the Protestant faith in which he had been raised and became an atheist. He later described his young self as being paradoxically very angry with God for not existing. This atheistic viewpoint was strengthened by his association with his private tutor, William T. Kirkpatrick, who exposed Lewis to a wide variety of classical literature. He even insisted that Lewis learn Greek so he could enjoy the classics in their original language. Kirkpatrick's tutelage sharpened young Jack's mind, helping Lewis earn a scholarship to Oxford University in 1917. Except for a year spent fighting in World War I, Lewis spent much of the rest of his life in Oxford. Even in later years, when he was working in Cambridge as a professor of medieval and Renaissance English, Lewis would always travel back home to Oxford on weekends. He earned high honors as a student, and he went on to teach as a fellow at Magdalen College, Oxford, where he remained for nearly 30 years. Over the next few years, Lewis came under the influence of a series of Christian thinkers, including his colleague and friend J.R.R. Tolkien, the Lord of the Rings fame. He slowly embraced Christianity, and in 1931, Lewis committed his life to Christ. This change of faith sparked a radical transformation. He began writing and lecturing as an apologist, one who would defend the Christian faith. With a sharp mind and a keen grasp of logic, he proved a formidable advocate for Christianity. Lewis lectured throughout England and was often featured on radio broadcasts. Most notably, Lewis wrote a number of classic books, including Mere Christianity, my favorite book, The Screwtape Letters, and The Chronicles of Narnia. If you have not read, if you're a Christian and you have not read Mere Christianity, consider your education incomplete. Amen. Near the end of his life, Lewis met Joy Gresham, an American divorcee with 2 teenage sons. Although at first attracted only to her intellect, Lewis soon fell in love, and they were married in 1956. 4 happy years later, Joy died of cancer. Lewis followed her 3 years later, passing away on November 22, 1963, the same day President John F. Kennedy was assassinated. Regarded as perhaps the most influential Christian apologist of his day, C.S. Lewis continues to impact skeptics and Christians alike. So that is C.S. Lewis. Now we're going to read about Carl Sagan. Born in 1934, Carl Sagan was a well-known astronomer and cosmologist. By the time he died in 1996, he had published more than 600 scientific papers, but he was best known for writing best-selling books about science, and for appearing on popular television programs to expound on the wonder of the universe. As a child growing up in a Jewish home, Sagan was inquisitive. Although his mother believed in God and was active in synagogue, she taught him to be skeptical, to question and analyze the world around him. His father, on the other hand, was a quiet man who instilled in his son a sense of wonder, encouraging him to explore and discover new things. Young Carl enjoyed reading science fiction and spent as much time as he could at the library and museums trying to figure out how the world worked. Sagan attended the University of Chicago and earned several degrees, including a PhD in astronomy and astrophysics in 1960. He lectured and conducted research at Harvard before taking a position as a professor of astronomy at Cornell, where he served as associate director for the Center for Radio Physics and Space Research. From the time he was still in college, he worked as an advisor to NASA. Among his duties was briefing the Apollo astronauts and developing experiments they would conduct in outer space. He later was active in the search for extraterrestrial life and promoted SETI, S-E-T-I, the Search for Extraterrestrial Intelligence, a scientific organization that listens to radio noise from space for signs of intelligent life. Because of his passion for scientific discovery, Sagan wanted to popularize science so that many more people would become interested in the search for the truth about the universe. He wrote several books, including Cosmos, a companion to his 13-part television series for PBS. Both the book and the television series were huge successes. Cosmos became the best-selling science book ever published in English, and the 1980 television series has been seen by more than 500 million people around the world. Sagan also received a Pulitzer Prize for The Dragons of Eden, Speculations on the Evolution of Human Intelligence. His science fiction novel Contact was made into a movie starring Billy Foster in 1997, a year after his death. Religiously, Sagan believed that the notion of God as an oversized white male with a flowing beard who sits in the sky and tallies the fall of every sparrow was ludicrous, unbelievable. Instead, he subscribed to the idea of God as the set of physical laws that govern the universe. Sagan claimed to be an agnostic, saying, "An atheist has to know a lot more than I do know. An atheist is someone who knows there is no God. By some definitions, atheism is very stupid." Yet he implied atheism by declaring that the cosmos is all that is, or was, or ever will be. Sagan was a strong promoter of skepticism, a method of reasoning that questions everything until proven conclusively by science and logic. One of his famous quotes from the Cosmos television show is that extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence. Dr. Turek and Dr. Geisler discuss this concept in an upcoming chapter. Carl Sagan was an influential force in the scientific community during his lifetime, winning numerous scientific awards and contributing personally to the study of planetary atmospheres and exobiology. The study of the effects of extraterrestrial environments on living things. Yet his skeptical naturalistic view of the world blinded him to the existence of a personal God. So here's what we're going to do with these two brief articles. We're going to compare and contrast the two men. I'm not an artist, so don't expect much from this. It's really just two circles, like that. So this is going to be C.S. Lewis. This is going to be Carl Sagan. And this is going to be what they have in common in the middle. So this will be what's true of just Lewis, just true of Sagan, and in the middle, what's in common. So what did they hold in common? How were they alike?
They both
Yeah.
They both were like raised in Christian families, so like they had to figure out themselves.
Okay, actually, one was raised in a Christian family,
Sagan
or a Protestant family, and
was.
Sagan was in a Jewish family.
Oh,
So
okay.
the thing that's the same is they both had a faith background, right? They both had some understanding of religious faith. and in the case of both of them, of God, right? Because both Christianity and Judaism believe in God. Yes.
They both renounced their faith.
Okay, they both renounced their faith. They both became atheists. Now, I know that Carl Sagan claimed to be agnostic, but he talked as though he were an atheist. I think that statement by him where he said, I don't know enough to be an atheist, I think maybe was some humility, whether it was true or false, I don't know. True or false humility, I don't know. Because his writings and his quotes really sound atheistic. Yes?
C.S. Lewis came back to Christ.
Okay, but that's for over here. We're still talking about what do they have in common. Yes.
They both were
Highly educated, very highly educated at the best schools in their respective countries, right? So Oxford, in England, and where does Carl Sagan go to school? Got a PhD from the University of Chicago. That's a great school. Yeah.
Both of them published a lot of work.
So they were both authors. They were both prolific authors. They both had very popular books, right? I mean, who hasn't heard of the Chronicles of Narnia? And Mere Christianity is still one of the most loved and most read books. You guys read Screw Tape Letters in 8th grade, right? Another great book. Yeah, man.
They're both famous.
They're both very famous. Yeah. I would think that for most people, at least of a certain age, Carl Sagan is a household name. C.S. Lewis is certainly to Christians would be a household name. Yeah.
And they're both when they were younger, they like exploring reading.
Loved to read, voracious readers. They loved to read. They loved books. They loved to learn. Readers are leaders. What else?
They were determined,
Okay. So they were both. Let's put it this way: they were both.
passionate.
Well, no. How do I put this? I know that sounds like but
Are they both kind of skeptics?
they were both proponents for their views. They both wanted people to know what it was that they believed, what they thought. Okay, now let's go over to C.S. Lewis. What is true of C.S. Lewis that was not true of Carl Sagan? Yes.
C.S. Lewis came back to his faith.
Right. So he eventually became a Christian in his 30s, I think. What else? Yes.
He lost his mother at a young age.
Okay, so tragic childhood, right? And he didn't just lose his mother, he lost his wife as well. But yeah, he was a veteran, right? Horrible war. What else? Yeah.
Kind of had a movie about one of his books.
Well, they both did though.
Yeah, because Cosmos.
They both had movies based on their books. Yeah, you could put that in between there. Yeah. Yes.
Oh, he was the most influential Christian.
Yeah, he was a Christian apologist.
What is that? Oh, never mind. I was wondering about it.
So apologetics is defense of the faith. So a Christian apologist is one that defends the Christian faith. Yes, there. Yeah. Went to Oxford. Yes.
Oh, he got married.
Yes, I think Sagan was as well, but but it doesn't tell us. Yeah, married to Joy. By the way, he wrote a book called Surprised by Joy. He read that before he ever met Joy Gresham. But later it found to have what found to be a kind of a providential title. Surprised by Joy, I read as a sophomore in college, and it was the book that turned me on to C.S. Lewis, but it was also the book that helped me realize that I love to read. I just don't like novels. I like theology. So I'm gonna quote to you. There's a movie. I believe I have the DVD. It's called Shadowlands. It's based on the life of C.S. Lewis, and it's a really good movie. It's a long movie, and it's not a real action-packed movie. But there's this scene, and I believe it's a true story, that he's at some gathering of academics, and his wife has recently died of cancer. And this colleague, not friend, who was an atheist, comes up to him and says, "You prayed for your wife, right?" And he said, "Yes, I did. And she died anyway. What do you think of this God now?" And C.S. Lewis's answer was this: "I don't pray because it changes God. I pray because it changes." And I thought that was a profound statement. Okay, what's true about Sagan that's not true of Lewis? Anna.
Oh wait. He was well known.
Okay, they were both well known.
Astronomer.
Yeah.
Astronomer.
Okay, he was an astronomer.
And
Okay. Mateo? He was what? Okay, yeah, he advised NASA. That's pretty cool. Mary?
He grew up in a Jewish.
Yeah, he grew up in a Jewish home. They both had faith backgrounds, but his was a different background from C.S. Lewis's. What else? Yes.
He lived in America.
Okay, so he was an American.
Yeah.
He was a Brit.
I thought he's Irish.
he was promoted at the SETI.
Yeah. So yeah, he had something to do with SETI, the search for extraterrestrial intelligence. What were you going to say? Same thing. Yeah. He also was a filmmaker.
What?
Like it wasn't just that they made films about him. He actually made films. He made the series, the PBS series Cosmos, and that was so. There weren't just movies about him. He was a filmmaker. Yes.
Wasn't C.S. Lewis
He was born in Ireland, but I think he was. He was British.
I like Irish.
Okay. Anything else? Nothing else? Okay.
He works for NASA.
Oh.
Yeah, he advised NASA. I don't know that he
Oh,
actually.
the other one I have one.
What's that?
One, really good one. Oh yeah, he proved a formidable.
Yeah, he was the best Christian apologist of his day, and today even still. I will be using C.S. Lewis. I definitely use it in senior year, but I may be using it. I may be losing it. I may. Using it in this class as well. I don't know if you've ever heard of the argument of liar, lunatic, Lord, but that's C.S. Lewis. That's his argument for Christ. Okay, so why did we do this? Well, apart from the fact that it's a good exercise to learn how to compare and contrast, and you may get some ACT questions. By the way, I'm going to start the ACT class in September. Aside from that fact, I want you to see these two men as kind of emblematic of what we're going to be talking about this year. You've got this one man who was not just a follower of Christ, but one that helped other people know and follow Christ. And then this other man who he had some sort of background on God and was also very successful, chose to go his own way and to not believe in God. Both men are now dead. what we do with Jesus in this life matters. In fact, I would submit. And so we will be reading about what Carl Sagan believed. And we're going to be reading about what C.S. Lewis believed. And so the question for you and the challenge for you, should you choose to accept it, is to figure out who's got the most evidence. That's where we're headed. Who's got the most evidence? Any questions? Okay, great. We're done for today. Okay.
So I'm just